Good morning, everyone, and welcome on to today's call. My name's Tony Restell, the founder of socialhire.com. I'm delighted that we have on with us today the team behind Hunted. Many of you in the recruitment industry will know the app Hunted. If you haven't had a look at it already, definitely do have a check out of that, hunted.com. And they're going to be talking to us today about how you can attract top talent to join your recruitment business. Going to get some really great insights into how you go about doing that. There's going to be a hashtag that you'll be able to use today. So if you've got any questions, if there's particular things you've learnt, then please do use the hashtag TopRecTalent. Also, if questions come to mind later in the day, feel free to tweet with that hashtag as well. And we'll be looking out for that, and we'll keep an eye out on that and respond accordingly. In terms of today's presentation, I'd like to talk just a little bit about Hunted and your presenter for today. We're really thrilled to be joined by the founders of Hunted, and it's primarily James Silverman who's going to be presenting to you today, but he has the rest of the team with him to field questions as well. Many of you will know James. He's had a long and successful career in the recruitment industry. Started out with Michael Page, along with another of the co-founders, Guy Tam. And many of you will know him from running a global recruitment business. He's worked with loads of the world's biggest recruitment organizations, but also tons and tons of smaller startup businesses. So he's got a wealth of knowledge about what it takes to be successful in the recruitment industry, and I, for one, really looking forward to hearing his insights today. So thank you all for joining. Do use the question box to put questions to James throughout the session, and we'll be turning our attentions to those at the end during the Q&A. But for now, I'll hand you over to James.
Thank you, Tony, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for any of those who are joining us from Asia. As you can see, my background has been in rec to rec. Over the years, I've worked with thousands of recruiters, hundreds of recruitment organizations across the UK and Europe, Asia Pacific. I spent 3 years based in Singapore, the Middle East, and North America more recently. And in my experience, the number one thing that has limited the growth and the success for recruitment companies is their ability to hire recruitment talent. I recognized through my role in rec to rec that there was clearly such a massive inefficiency, not just for the hiring companies, but job seekers as well, who have incredibly limited career visibility, which is essentially what led me to found Hunted. And Hunted is helping recruitment companies to define their employer brand and then promote it to our growing recruiter community to help them attract, engage, and hire recruiters. In today's webinar, which we hope to be the first of many, we're going to focus on some of the key things that recruitment companies should keep in mind as they define their EVP, or their employee value proposition, in order to attract experienced recruitment talent. As we designed Hunted and we were working on refining the product, building it for the purpose, we undertook a lot of research. We spoke with hundreds of recruiters to really understand the different ways they go about their job search and the key factors that impact their career decisions. Worth mentioning that this will not be a panacea. Hopefully this will be, as I say, the first of many webinars. There's not enough time to run through everything you can do to improve your internal hiring strategy. So instead today I'll be really focusing on driving inbound engagement. So hope to provide some actionable tips specific to the recruitment industry. Do let me know if I'm moving too fast. I'll try not to ramble. And if there are questions, then we'd love to look at a good Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So the agenda for today, what we're going to cover, firstly, what's different about talent attraction specifically for the recruitment industry? How do you define your EVP, and how is it best to differentiate your brand? And then finally, we'll touch on briefly how to broadcast your brand effectively and to the most relevant audience. Firstly, it really is different. Talent attraction for recruitment companies, we've got to take a slightly different tactic. Primarily, quite simply, in our day jobs, we are focused on building talent communities, not within the recruitment space, but within our own niche sectors. One thing that I'll touch on again later is it's important not to think that your corporate brand, the image that you project to candidates and to clients in your niche sector, that's not the same as employer branding and targeting completely different people to join your recruitment organization. On the flip side, of course, and again, where it's a little bit different, there's a bit of a paradox for the recruitment industry. Recruiters themselves, the candidates, are desensitized to a lot of what they see, whether it's the job boards they're using or LinkedIn, where they're spending a huge amount of time every day because it's their day job. So then being able to engage them with information or content for their career, it becomes more of a challenge. So briefly, to look at the sort of current options, how businesses can go about making hires, attracting talent to their business. I'll quickly run through these and outline perhaps some of the limitations. In-mails, LinkedIn, massive, for direct headhunting over email or in-mail. You're just very limited with the information you have. Fundamentally, you don't know whether the recruiter you're targeting is A, good enough, B, affordable, 3, a culture fit, D, in a position to actually consider a move. So it becomes a bit of a numbers game. Job boards as well. I think a lot of this is the fault of the recruitment organizations, actually. The quality of the job descriptions and the brand's ability to actually differentiate their opportunities. You go onto any of the major job boards and you often see 10 generic job adverts, maybe even from the same company. Rec-to-recs, quality rec-to-recs can do a great job, but I think that you've always just got to be aware of their own limitations in terms of the reach that they will have, and perhaps with some quality control of the messaging. Direct headhunts can be incredibly effective, like in any sector of recruitment, if they're done well. Careers pages, even if you've got a fantastic careers page, the issue is actually getting people to see it. And more often than not, the people who look at your careers page, they're actually already engaged with your brand. They may be in an interview process, on their way to an interview, or being, seen a job advert. Finally, review sites as well can be a powerful tool. Again, the people looking at this will likely already be engaged with your brand, and you need to be perhaps a little bit wary of some of the impartial reviews on there. I think that by the nature of what they provide, whether it's a disgruntled employee or a hiring manager with, sort of reasoning behind their reviews. I think with each of these options, you can also look at it from the recruiter side, from the talent side, the candidates that you're targeting. In mails, the lack of information employers have means that because it's numbers game, it can be a bit of a spam approach. It is less engaging, the message that they read. Job boards, it's hard to really get a good insight to the role and the companies. Rec-to-rec, again, if you find a great one, you are just limited by their particular portfolio. They may, and certainly likely to have some great options, maybe some average options, but none will have that many. Direct headhunts, again, if they are done well, they can be really engaging and productive. Careers pages, how do they get to them in the first place? And likewise, they may be proactive to have a look at review sites if they're actively looking. So now we're going to look at what we believe, the solution is, or one part of the overall solution when it comes to attracting talent to your recruitment business. We're going to cover mainly how you define your employer brand to attract the right candidates, and then touch on how you broadcast it effectively to your target audience. Defining your brand. How can recruitment companies do this? We mentioned this before, employer brand does not equal your corporate brand. understanding your audience and what drives their career decisions. I'm going to go through a little bit of information that came out of our research and then show you why you shouldn't fall into the trap of a catch-all employer brand, which is done in, incredibly often, and just show you actually some good examples and bad examples of employer branding. First thing is about knowing your audience. As I mentioned, we did a lot of research when we were building Hunted. We built our product for the purpose of this rec-to-rec market. And for recruiters, time and time again, the key drivers that factor in their decision-making, basically these four factors, time and time again, were what was mentioned. You've got compensation, learning and development, autonomy and flexibility, and career progression. Of course, there's a lot of other factors that influence the decisions, and we'll touch on these, but these were the key drivers. It's important to understand that every recruiter is different, so having a catch-all philosophy when it comes to employer branding often doesn't work. Example profiles from Hunted show a recruiter on the left who is driven far more by career progression and learning and development in their career than the recruiter on the right, who is driven much more purely by compensation and having autonomy and flexibility in their role. I think it's very difficult to appeal to both of these profiles. And if you try to appeal to everyone, those who really want career progression and get from the perspective of learning and development, as well as the people who are wanting a lot of autonomy and just to make money in their role, if you try and appeal to both, you're likely to appeal to neither. So I think one of the key things is to work out what you're great at and really use this, focus on this to target the right people. The next thing that follows on from this is what we call decision-worthy content. It's very easy to get carried away with lots of, fluffy descriptions of how great it is to work at your company, but you really need to focus on what is going to influence the decision of a recruiter. Fundamentally, when they are analyzing or reviewing, researching companies and opportunities, they'll really at the back of their mind think of two factors, two things: success in the role and then their perceived enjoyment in the role. So for each of these things, within sort of perceived success, you could look at things like the training and development, the quality and size of database, the infrastructure and technology, whether or not there's a marketing budget available for advertising, a LinkedIn recruiter license, etc. They're the things that they can understand to help them perceive whether or not this company is going to help them be more successful. And then the other things around their perceived enjoyment of the role, again, anything from the management style, the sorts of company incentives and reward structures, to the office environment. All of that, again, is going to impact their decision making from the perspective of enjoyment on the day-to-day and in the role. I've highlighted a few bad examples that I'm sure you'll have seen. You may be guilty of it yourselves, but these generic sweeping statements are not helpful, and I don't think it in any way differentiates your brand from the next. State-of-the-art infrastructure, quarterly incentives, or uncapped commission structure. In all my work in Rec-to-Rec, I've never once come across a capped commission structure. So, good to know, but I think we're going to really look at how you can add real context to make this much more powerful to really promote your brand. One thing to keep in mind is transparency is key. Transparency has been I think a hot topic across many industries, but certainly when it comes to talent acquisition, it's very rarely perceived as a negative thing. Many brands are very shy about communicating their commission structure. They may not like to share it, on their careers page. They may brief a rec to rec and allow them to use it as a selling tactic to attract people to their brand. But it's a really, really important one. You know, it's a commission-driven industry. Very few people who work in agency recruitment are not financially motivated. So if you have a brilliant commission structure, you should shout about it. Investigo here is one of the companies on Hunted who has always shared their commission structure on their careers page. They've got it up on their Hunted profile. This really, you know, they go into great detail, not just sort of sharing what it is, but explaining exactly what it means. If you bill £250,000, you will earn a minimum of £100,000. That's a very powerful statement, and transparency is key. I think if you are seen to perhaps shy away from sharing the details of the commission structure, it's very rarely going to have sort of a positive impact. I think if anything, it's a negative perception. People will wonder why it's not shared. Another example, you know, looking at something like KPIs, you know, often there's brands that promote themselves by, you know, mentioning that it's a selling point that they don't have any KPIs. I think for some people that's great, but for other people, I think it's understanding what the KPIs mean and the importance of them. So not just stating what they are, but explaining them. And this example shows Connected Group, who, based in Hong Kong, their CEO, Matt Gollop, had explained the reason behind the KPIs. They don't, I think, you know, they don't enforce, they don't manage through KPIs, but they track and record everything. So if people are not hitting their targets, they can analyze the data, call times, activity metrics, LinkedIn recruiter stats, to work back, set productivity targets, and understand where improvements can be made. So they're really showing that, you know, KPIs are there to have a positive impact on people's careers, rather than just some sort of shortcut management tool where everybody's sort of measured and performance managed in the exact same way. Next thing when it comes to employer branding is, you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Helping the idea of employer branding is so often to help people visualize life at your company. And a picture is the most powerful way of doing this. But visualizing not just the day-to-day and in the office and what it's like Monday through Friday, but it could be team drinks after work. It could be an out-of-office incentive. That as well is an incredibly important part of working at your company. A careers video, again, can be a very powerful tool if done well. There are some fantastic careers videos out there. There's some great ones on Hunted. I have seen in the past some average ones that possibly don't actually improve the chances of attracting talent to a business. So if you are going to do a careers video, invest in it and do it well. Some bad examples of the sorts of pictures that you will still find on recruitment websites and on recruitment careers pages. This is probably at the extreme end of the spectrum with real stock images, but certainly what you should avoid. And some fantastic examples from some of the company profiles on Hunted. One thing to be mindful of is, you know, certainly when it comes to inside office photos, the getting the right light and ideally having a professional photographer is quite important. If, on the other hand, you are out on an incentive, you're outside of the office and there's good light, photos from, you know, a quality smartphone is, you know, are really, you know, can have the same effect. Again, what we mentioned with career videos, they can have, you know, fantastic input, fantastic impact on the recruiter community. This was one of the early blog posts that we put out on Hunted, and we got some really good engagement from people on this. If you are thinking about building, you know, or creating a careers video, the best thing you can do is look at some of the best ones out there. You'll find different themes, different ways that they give people access to their working environment and their internal culture. So do your research, have a look through some of these and work out what would be fitting with your brand. The next step, and this is a real major point, especially for the medium to large organizations to take on board. When you're hiring, you should really take a micro approach. And what I mean by this is, a generic job advert talking about all of the different opportunities within your business, within a particular office, without going into any real context about a particular role, does not have the impact that's desired. I've put up an example here of a fantastic job description from Morgan McKinley for their Sydney office. Obviously, it pulls through photos from the Sydney office that you can flick through. But what they've done here is given you an insight to what the opportunity is. They describe, I don't know if you can actually read it from your screens, but your role has become available as a result of a senior consultant who's been with our business for over 6 years relocating. This is an established desk with existing relationships and accounts for you to work with while still having a huge opportunity to develop new business. Your client base will include some of our key accounts across multiple industries, and you will leverage from Morgan McKinley's relationship as a Tier 1 supplier to the majority of the ASX 20. This team boasts 3 of the top 5 billing consultants in 2015 and is managed by John T. Blues, who is Sydney's #1 biller and the #2 biller across all of our APAC offices in 2015. You will also have a dedicated associate consultant who focuses on building candidate talent pools in the projects market. As you can see, that's an incredibly attractive opportunity for the right person. The job is coded up in a way that it can be targeted, so if it is not relevant for you, you shouldn't have to read this job description. When you look at the traditional job boards out there, it's very hard to pinpoint the roles that are most appropriate and effective to you. So from the employer's perspective, taking a micro approach to hiring is one of the most important things that you should do. And this will often mean empowering talent acquisition to be working closely with the individual hiring managers or empowering the individual hiring managers themselves. They are one of the biggest selling points about an opportunity, and they will know better than anyone else in the business why it's a great opportunity. What we see here is one of the main UK job boards where a business is not taking a micro approach to hiring, very generic, trying to sort of catch all from every sector, diverse, amounts of experience, and it just tends to not have such a powerful effect, especially when you're targeting the experienced recruiters. Now, just quickly, it's really important to think about the best way to actually broadcast your brand and target the most relevant audience. What I've mentioned at the start, we're a little bit limited by our options, quite simply because you don't want to be diluting a lot of the messaging that you're putting out to build networks and earn credibility within a particular market niche. The first thing when it comes to broadcasting your brand is be authentic, and the most powerful way to be authentic is having a third party endorse your brand. So, it's all well and good putting out on LinkedIn, putting out across your social media. We are a fantastic business. We offer a great working environment and a market-leading commission structure. What is far more powerful is a third party saying, this is a fantastic place to work. This is why it's a great working environment for people joining the business. This is why it's an exciting time to join them. Having a third party vouch for you and back it up with quality information about your brand and about your opportunities is incredibly important. especially when there is a lot of noise out there coming directly from all the individual companies. What I've shown you here is one of the articles, one of the first curation articles we put out on our blog. You can see it's had, on the left-hand side, it's had over 850 shares, and it really hit a chord with a lot of recruitment professionals who, for the first time, were able to access brands that were all appealing for them in a particular market. So this focused on Australia companies that created very attractive environments for experienced consultants. They weren't trying to be attractive to graduates. They weren't trying to be attractive to those who perhaps want to earn 3 promotions within 18 months, which is very achievable in this industry. They weren't offering that. What they were offering was a mature working environment, a very sort of grown-up culture, and environments that are attractive to people who perhaps earn their stripes and want that level of autonomy. So, check it out on the blog and some of the other curation articles we have, and you'll start to get a real feel for the ways that you can create an identity and target the right people for your brand, not just any recruiter. I think one of the final points to mention before moving into the Q&A, and look, as I said, this is not a completely comprehensive overview of everything for you to do to attract recruiters to your business, but hopefully you've learned something and seen, from our research, what we believe to be the most important things, what's been working for organizations. Around this broadcasting point, this final point, I think worth mentioning, being aware that, you may need different channels for your corporate brand, the messaging you're sending and putting out to clients and candidates, and your employer brand. I think, now I think people are all aware that you need to be mobile ready. You need to make sure that your careers page or your jobs are all viewable and findable from a mobile device. And, there's no one solution for every business. Some companies may find that a channel like Facebook is fantastic for differentiating their messaging from the corporate side and build an employer branding following through Facebook, keeping perhaps LinkedIn for more of their corporate branding. There's no one solution, and there's a lot of different ways to doing this. But what we're building at Hunted is hopefully a very specific audience that will allow you to target them with the right information to create a brand new channel that can save you time and money when hiring recruiters. That's about it from the presentation. It would be great to hear if we do have any questions. Do appreciate any feedback on the webinar itself as well. It's the first of many, but would be keen to field any questions if they come through.
James, thanks so much. Really, really interesting insights there. I'm sure people have taken a lot from that, and I can see questions coming in at the moment. So I'll have a look through those and start asking those to you in a minute. In terms of Hunted itself, I know there was a question came through around examples of best practice for career videos, and obviously you pulled up the page with the example best practice videos. Is that something we'd be able to send a link out to everyone about after the session?
Yeah, no problem. We can include that in, we can put a few links in actually, referencing some of the blog posts and even the job adverts that we've highlighted. They are fantastic examples.
Great.
I think just on the career videos, I touched on this, but just to elaborate a little bit, I think the main thing with video content is doing it well. There's many different ways of creating a careers video. You can have music playing continuously in the background and brief shots panning across the office. You can have glimpses of the different incentives and the celebrations of the teams, or you could go to something that is a little bit more was content focused. Interviews with the business leaders and interviews with the employees, which is an incredibly powerful tool if it's genuine and if it's done well. It cannot seem scripted, which is where it is a very, very difficult thing to achieve. It really is important to understand from your employees why they love working there, what it was that attracted them to a particular brand, and being able to broadcast that in a genuine way is no easy task. So, look at the videos that are out there. Even better if you can look at, careers videos from outside of the recruitment industry. There's a huge amount out there. If you're going to go down the route of trying to be funny, it can be phenomenal if it works. It can be a really viral video and incredible from an employer branding perspective, but it's even harder to get right. So, don't skimp on the budget, and, really plan it in advance, and make sure that the employees who work for you are heavily involved in scripting it and working out what your selling points are.
Great. Thank you. So lots of questions been coming in. Interesting one here is, what do you think would be the best way to promote a startup recruitment business that doesn't have necessarily the same level of benefits as some of the bigger corporates? Any ideas on that, or things you've seen companies do particularly well over the years?
Yeah, look, fantastic. And, if you're a startup, you've almost got an unfair advantage when it comes to creating an employee value proposition. Of course, Michael Page was a startup one day, and their culture has evolved massively as they've grown. If you're a startup, you may be a lot more flexible in offering autonomy to your staff. You as a business leader, you may simply not have time to invest purely managing, and will need to be revenue generating yourself. So, you may offer a lot more autonomy and flexibility, and therefore need to hire experienced talent. You may also have a much more rewarding commission structure. Your costs are likely to be lower, so why shouldn't you reward your staff more? They may not have the same infrastructure that a large company could afford them. They may not have the same training and development opportunity. So you just need, this is back to that point that no two businesses are the same. Work out what you want to really offer. Work out who are the sort of people you want to hire into the business, and make it attractive to them. Use those 4 key drivers that we've mentioned, but there's so much else. There's so many amazing and creative incentives and reward structures that we're seeing in the recruitment industry. I mean, off the top of my head, of a couple of unique things that brands are doing. You've got a Goodman Masson in London who have a brilliant, really innovative sort of mortgage scheme where, you are helped along paying off a mortgage. It incentivizes you to put, deposit down on a house. Feedback from their staff is that they just wouldn't have dreamed of being able to sort of get that sort of property equity at the stage that they had. For a business like a 33 Talent, based in HQ in Sydney with offices in Singapore and London, they offer a row work environment. It's a results-only work environment. So there's no mandatory meetings, there's no fixed office hours. You do everything the way you want to do it, but you're, much more focus on, or all the focus is on the results. So I think if you are a startup, it could be a really fun thing to actually work out what sort of people you want to attract and what sort of things would allow you to attract them.
That's great, thank you. And there's a question around employer branding and the corporate social pages. So would you advise pulling employer branding into those corporate social pages, or should the business actually have separate pages for this type of content?
It's a tough one, and I there's brands that I know that won't even have a careers page, because the messaging that they want to put out, they don't want that in any way to be read, or they don't want that perception to be seen by their clients and corporate and candidates. If you focus on very corporate clients and you are outwardly a very corporate brand, you don't really necessarily want to promote that as your employer brand as well. One of the things we're doing with Hunted is allowing companies to create content that is purely going to be seen by the recruiter community. I think that there are ways through other social media of trying to be targeted, but I think it really does come down to the discretion of the brand. If you are a digital technology recruitment business and you are quite reflective of your client base, and you have a similar employer brand, then it's actually a powerful statement, to align that employer brand with your corporate brand. You are a reflection of your client base. And I think that's the fundamental point to consider. So if you think that your employer brand, the reasons why your target hires will join your business, if you think that is closely aligned with the sort of messaging that your clients are even putting out, then I think that it can be a really powerful tool to give everyone access to your career's collateral. On the other hand, maybe it's a balance between the two. I think it's really down to the discretion of the individual companies, the sectors that they operate in, and perhaps even getting feedback from the candidates and clients that they deal with to understand what their impression is of the business, or how a careers page may even impact their impression of your brand.
Yeah, totally agree. And there's a couple of questions here around Hunted itself, James. So one question is, when is the Android version coming out? And another question is, can you share any demographics around the types of recruiters that are registering? This person's particularly asking with a view to, is there some UK data available, or UK recruiters that are registering?
Yeah, absolutely. We're pleased to say that we're in final stages of testing for our Android app, which will be available within the next week. And that's really exciting for us. We've been a little bit restrained with our promotion of the brand whilst only having our iOS app available for download. So, we came out of soft launch about nearly 3 months ago now. In terms of our demographics, so we built up a user base of just under 3,000 recruitment professionals globally so far. And just over half of those, or around half of those, are based in the UK, and overall about a quarter of those, in fact just under 1,000, are based in London, where we as a business are based. We're really focused on offering access to the key global recruitment centres. I think as of now we've got jobs and companies across the likes of Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Tokyo, Shanghai. We've got a really fantastic, diversity of brands and opportunities, and it's growing by the week. But we're also seeing our user base from the recruiter side. We're adding between 100 and 200 new recruiters every week, and we hope to raise this when the Android app is launched as well.
Fantastic. And there's also another question around Hunted. When will we be able to start searching the profiles that are on Hunted?
Yeah, so this is something that we're hoping to release this feature in the next few months. We want to build up our user base first and ensure that they won't be inundated with headhunts. One of the things that we're looking to start to test over the next few weeks actually is some of the hunt features. So for us to suggest to brands relevant profiles of people who are active on Hunted, or who are passively looking for roles or on the platform, and then suggesting these profiles to the companies and allowing them to send a headhunt to them. Obviously, the value, as I alluded to with headhunting on LinkedIn, I think that you're limited with the information you have. Of course, on Hunted, in exchange for them being anonymous profiles, you don't get their name or the company name or their picture, but you get a complete understanding of their career to date and their career narrative. So what they're paid, what their performance looks like over the previous 12 months, what they focus on in terms of placements, which sector, level of seniority of the candidates that they work with, and then shielded by the anonymity, they are able to really share, their frustrations, their ambitions, whether they want to relocate to Sydney or whether they want to manage a team, or they're frustrated, they don't buy into their manager, whatever it is. Because they're anonymous, you get this snapshot of their situation to enable each of these headhunt messages to be far, far more powerful than when you are sending them out and have such limited information at your disposal.
And there's one last question come in, James, just asking around what's the profile of people that are registering in terms of experience level? Are you seeing more at the junior end or more at the mid-levels or senior end, or is it just that broad industry?
Look, it's been quite broad. It's been a good mix. I think our sweet spot, if we look, and we're starting to do more in the way of analysing our user base, and we'll start to share this with the companies that are on board. But I'd say typically sweet spot, 1 to 3 years experience, as I say, mostly London and UK, real diversity of sectors, but certainly in the professionals recruitment space, not much in the way of sort of staffing, whether it's blue collar or high street. We've had a bit of that on there where people have put in their career narratives that they'd like to step up into, higher value placement and into a, more of the professional placement space. We've had executive search professionals join us as well. And I mean, interestingly, we've had a number of applications coming from management. I think from the manager's perspective, so often, certainly at the very senior end of the talent pool, there's very rarely a job advertised. It's a very tough process for a top, business leader, someone who's managed large P&Ls, multiple teams, to really understand, what's out there just by actually looking. So for these guys, they can build their anonymous profile, essentially spec themselves in, let a brand know exactly what they've done, the success that they've had, spec themselves in to understand from the business, are there any relevant opportunities? Would you be interested in speaking with me? I'm actively looking for a role. If you can share some details on an opportunity, if there's one that is relevant, then I'd love to review that and we could potentially, engage further. So, we've got a lot to do in terms of actually educating our user base and educating people as to the benefits of using Hunted, and the ability to really manage your own job search and be in control. I mean, the recruit in the Rec2Rec space, it is one of, if not the most talent-driven industries there is. No business is very rarely, they're not ever hiring, and there's a lot of opportunist hiring that goes on. And this means that recruiters and good recruiters are in demand. They should have more control in their job search, and that's exactly what we've tried to build in Hunted.
Tremendous. James, I think that's all in terms of questions. So thank you ever so much for taking the time out of your day today to share these insights with us all. I know from the questions we've had and the comments we've had in that people have really taken a lot from this. So thank you very much. We'll be sending out a recording of the session to everyone in due course. And if you haven't tried out the Hunted app yet, then certainly recommend heading on over to hunted.com, giving that a try on the iPhone right away, or coming back for the Android version in the next week or two. Thanks ever so much, everyone, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Tony. Cheers, everyone.
Bye for now.